Here is the original beat again. My God.
Flow with the music.
And then the finished product here. When I was 12 years old, a friend gave me a copy of FL Studio, and that was my very first introduction to a DAW, and quite honestly, where I fell in love with production. Now, at that time, I had no idea what the heck I was doing, but that didn't stop me from making something. And so what I want to do today is I want to play you my very first beat, the very first thing that I made when I opened up FL Studio all those years ago. And I want to use all the knowledge that I've gained over the last 2 decades to see if I can turn this into something better. Now, before we get started, if you're a producer who's been feeling stuck with your production, then what I've done for you, my friend, is I've done a free training where I basically walk you through my process. A lot of what you're going to see today, but just broken down in more detail. So if you want that training, it is completely for free, and you can access it by clicking the first link down below. But okay, let's get started. Okay, first things first, let's play this beat. Oh God, I'm scared. Here we go. Oh, I can't believe I'm playing this on the internet. Oh, okay, here we go, here we go.
Are you ready?
Oh, cringe city.
Are you ready?
This part's not that bad.
Flow
Oh,
with the music.
no. And then the out of key.
Music.
Oh God. So as you can see, we all start somewhere. This honestly, it's not great. No, it's not. There is a little bit of a piece here that I did enjoy. And quite honestly, why was I making techno? I don't know. I think because in FL Studio, it's so easy to just to click things in. And I was like, 4 on the floor, kick, sounds great. And then I probably pulled this from like a patch or a preset. I'm certain I did not program this myself. And so, the super cringy like vocal chops.
Flow with the
Oh
music.
no. Then you had the out of key sort of melody. And why on earth is there a crash, but just like on my right ear? I remember when I played this beat for a friend, I'll never forget. I was so excited that I had made something and I played it for him. And I was like, yo, look what I made. And he was like, mm-hmm. It's okay though, we're going to fix it. Okay, so taking a look at this here, I really don't know what key this is in, nor do I care. Because if I'm being honest, I don't think I want to really keep a lot of what's going on here. This is sort of like techno dancey vibes, and I don't really make that. However, I think we can make something adjacent to it. And I always like to start with some sort of reference track, whether it's be for myself or for a client. And I think a good one for this would be Dancing in the Flames by The Weeknd. That song still sort of incorporates some like dancey but pop vibes, which I very much create. And so I think I want to do that. And so the first thing we're going to do is we have to set the tempo and the key for that song. Dancing in the Flames, I know, is in D flat major, so I'm going to set it down here in the circle of fifths. And then for the tempo, I actually don't know. Let's Google it. Okay, so after a quick Google search, it's at 117. I don't know if I'll keep it here. Maybe I'll change it a little bit later. But for now, we're just going to mute this because I don't need it. I did like that middle part, so I think maybe what I want to do at some point is incorporate some like ARP as a melody line. We'll see what happens. So let's go ahead and mute that there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the drums. So for Dancing in the Flames, the drum groove was like bump, da, boom, da, dum, bump, da, 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 da. So let's start there. Now, what I have done to speed this up a little bit more is I have already done some like sound selection. And so if you go over to Splice here, I love this integration into Studio One. Go over to Library. I had favorited some already here. So for my kick and snare, I believe it was, that's good. So we're just going to drag it over. And then for my snare, I'm going to be using that one right there. So we're obviously going for like an 80s vibe, which is what The Weeknd has been making for a while now. If we go over to our drums, okay, let's go ahead and record that. I think that's pretty good. This is like 80s sort of like pop. So if it was like boom bap, we could have a little bit of swing, but for this, I'm just going to quantize it on the grid. And then I just press the Q key on my keyboard. However, you can always go to the Q here and then set this to 100 and then apply. Same thing, right? Okay, so Okay, from here, I want some sort of movement. And a lot of times for the stuff that I make, that's going to be some sort of like tambourine or shaker or some sort of perk loop. Perk loops in general are a great way to spice up your drums. And so I had one here saved as well. That's honestly perfect. So drag it in. Usually in my template, I have like a predefined perk loop sort of track because I know that I like to incorporate these often. And so from here, and then using that new loop feature from Studio 17, we can just kind of extend it. Perfect. From there, let's add in a hi-hat because I still want like a tick, 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 tick kind of feeling. This one here, I'm gonna drag it into a sample one. And I usually, again, I have sounds in my template already ready to go, but for this, we need some more 80s vibe. So this one doesn't do it. And so if we go over to the close hat, if your hats chop off like this, whenever you play it, just go over to the trigger and do one shot. And as you can probably guess, the reason I'm placing it in sample one is because that way I can spread it across the keyboard. Okay. Now, again, because I really don't care about having like swing in this track, I'm fine with it being quantized. I'm just going to create a MIDI event, and then I'm going to go over to my toolbar, which I'll link down below. And so macros here, this is the Beatmaker's toolbar. Hats, we're using sample one, and let's do maybe eighth notes. However, I want to change the velocity, and so we're going to go over to velocity, this macro over here, alternating velocity, just to kind of have like that metronome tick, right? Okay, let's go ahead and loop this section. This still needs to be way more interesting. I mean, now we have a little bit more movement, but we could add a few more things here. And so what I also did is I saved a rim shot, a snap, and I believe a clap. So let's see here. If I bring in snap, just drag it into that, call this snap. And here's another little trick for you. If you want to rename the audio sample whenever you drag stuff in, as you rename it on the track, before you hit enter, press shift and then enter, and then it renames the actual event. So that's pretty cool. And so there's that. And then the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in a rim shot. So same thing here, we're gonna call this rim shot, shift, and then enter, and then it renames the event. Super cool, right? Okay, so now the job here is to place these in a way that creates a little bit more bounce, a little bit more movement. So let me see what I can do here. Okay, so here's what I have so far. However, this still sounds very dry, and so obviously the way that we can fix this is by adding a little bit of reverb. I'm gonna use another toolbar here. This one's free. You can pick it up down below as well. It's called the productivity toolbar. And so from here, a little bit of reverb, boom, vintage verb is the go-to. So we're gonna pull this down, pull the decay down as well. And then I am going to EQ this because I don't want this to be super washed out. I kind of want it to be like in a bell curve. Yeah. And then what we could probably do here is just take this reverb, hold the Option or Alt, and then copy it over to another track. But what I kind of want for that snap is to have a little bit of delay. So bringing in an echo boy. Let's do quarter note. Yeah, quarter note here. And then EQ this as well. A little bit of feedback and then bring down the mix. Two things that I want to do also immediately is with the perk loop, I kind of wanted to modulate a little bit more. And so a lot of times in these like dance tracks, you're going to have a lot of side chaining. You could do side chaining in the Studio One. It's not that hard. However, there's a very, very easy plugin called Kickstart that just does it automatically without any of the routing. And so I'm going to add that here and check out what happens. So this is without. Not bad. And then if we add it, and you can mess around here with the start points, with the note values. I think that's cool. And then from here, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take all of my drums, and I do this all the time, but drums bus here, I'm going to go over to my sends, and then I'm going to send them over to a room verb just to kind of put them all in the same room. So check this out. They just sound more cohesive. Slower these down in volume. Okay, let's save this. Very, very important. I'm pretty happy with these drums. Obviously, like, making music is a living organism. It's gonna change as you do it, and I'm pretty certain if I were to put an artist here eventually, that would change again, because you'd have to kind of mold it to that artist. But what I wanna do now is I wanna get down the keys, put down some, like, chord elements, some melodic elements, and so let's go over to a piano. Now, I always like to start with the piano when I'm sort of figuring out chords, because it allows me to hear all the notes. Okay, so let's switch over to this big one here. Now, when it comes to Dancing in the Flame, that's going to be in D flat major, so. Okay, and the specific chords are going to be D flat major, B flat minor, A flat major, and then G flat major. And so I'm just literally going to take those chords because I know I'm gonna do my own thing. So for now, let's just go ahead and record them on piano. Doom, 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 doom. We definitely gonna need some toms. That would make it so sick. But okay, for this, what I wanna do is, let's go over to quantize. I'm gonna set this to like 80. Hit apply. Okay, let's find a patch that is better suited for this record because this is not gonna cut it. Okay, so I pulled up Analog Lab and like the very first patch is the classic Juno keys, which I think might work. And so all we have to do once we have some MIDI already done, which is another reason that I like to use a piano, is just drag it down. And so let's call this one, I'll probably want to layer this. Let's call it keys 1. Ooh! But you know what it needs? It needs a little flair. That last note was wrong, but... And then we definitely need some tom fills. So why don't we actually get those in there now that I have some sort of like chord structure in a sound that I like. Okay, so I found this tom in Splice that I think is really going to help. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the placement for these toms, and then I'm gonna mess around with some of the pitches because I want to sort of emulate like a tom fill going down. And right now we only have one shot with one pitch, if that makes sense. And so, and then here again. Da-da, and then 2 at the end. Ooh, okay, so let's talk about these pitches. This one's fine. This one has to go down. Let's do maybe like 2, and then this one can go down 3. Or swapped. Let's do this one 2. So like a double hit on that tom, and then boom, and then right back up, so. Ooh, okay, hold on. Let's listen to it from the beginning. Hey. Tom fill? Okay, but something's missing here. Obviously, it sounds really choppy. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna crossfade them with the X key just so there's no like pops and clicks. And then from here, they are being sent to that room burb. I'm gonna swap all of these to the 80s preset though. I think that's pretty fitting. So I'm gonna take all these 70s, which is the default, then I'm gonna switch it to the 80s. I love the sort of interplay, is that a word? Between the toms and the rest of the drums. It just fills that pocket in quite nicely. Now that we have this, let's go ahead and back up to the melody line and let's layer this, because what I basically want is I want to have some sort of like pad underneath to make it sound a little bit fuller first and foremost. So let's look for a patch. So I found this patch here on Serum that I think is going to work quite nicely. It's around the ballpark of what I want genre-wise. So listen, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, it's on Serum, call it pad. I'm gonna drag this below. I'm gonna take these MIDI keys, drag them down, Option-Alt, drag down to copy. And then what I wanna do here is I'm gonna take out all the filler notes. I don't want that. I'm gonna go over to my sustain pedal, take that out of the way. Any aftertouch can go as well. And then for this, I'm gonna use another macro here on my toolbar called Perfect Chords or Notes. And so now we get this. And if we play this with the keys, lower the volume, it just fills it in. You see that? Kind of like sad and lonely? You know, it's a very lonely sound. And then you add the pad. However, here's what I want to do. A lot of times when I'm layering stuff, depending on the goal, I'll leave it in the exact same like range. However, sometimes I want to spread out the notes to sort of fill in the frequency spectrum, if that makes any sense. And so a way to see that in Studio One is if you click this hamburger icon, we go over to the track list lane here on the left, you can toggle any notes in the background. So you can see like the keys. If I were to move this around, you can see where those are being played. And so if you want to sort of spread them out, that's a good way to see what is behind, what you're layering, and what you want to do after that. So, okay, so with that in mind, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this, lower it down an octave. So if you click on a note, shift, down key, down an octave, send this up an octave, and then up an octave. That way we have a little bit of variance in what we're playing. Now, a lot of times what I'll do with like my melodic sounds is, I don't know why, but I just like to filter them. I like the sort of sad, moody vibe. And so an easy way to do that is just simply grab an EQ and then just filter it out here. So I'm gonna do a low cut, which by the way, I will die on this hill. It's low cut, not high pass. High pass makes no sense. What are you doing? You're cutting the lows. Can we agree on this? I don't know. Am I crazy? Let me know. And so, probably there. Yeah, just like dark and moody. And then let's probably copy this EQ over to that pad. Okay, fantastic. We now need a bass. And what I'm thinking is I kind of want to experiment with having two basses. This is not always the best way to do it because whenever you introduce too many like sub-frequency sounds or whatever, it can get really complicated. However, I have an idea. And so the first thing I'm gonna do is I think I wanna bring in an 808 to kind of have that like boom, very short decay. So let's go ahead and bring one in. I like the texture of it, but it needs a little bit of tweaking. So first and foremost, we have to make sure we always tune our 808s. Now, quick little lesson. Whenever we talk about tuning 808s, we do not mean that you tune it to your song. That's not what we mean. What we mean when we say tune your 808s, all you're simply doing is making sure that whenever you play, for example, a C key, that you're actually producing a C note, okay? Because if you don't, you might be thinking that you're programming or playing the right notes, but you're actually playing something different. And so in Studio One, it's really, really simple. All we have to do is, first and foremost, bring in a tuner. We're gonna pin this here so we can see it. And then what'll happen is I'm going to play a C note. You see that? It's an F1. I'm playing a C3, but it's playing an F1. And all we have to do at that point is go over to our sample one, which is where you should be playing your 808s, because again, you're able to spread them across the keyboard. Root note, we're gonna type in F1, the exact same thing we saw on the tuner. And so now, C3, exactly. Now I can be confident that whatever I'm playing or programming is the actual thing. So from here, let's go ahead and just come up with a simple bass line. Here's a cool little thing. Let's swap over to the new scale feature here in Studio One. And if we click on the pitch visibility in scale, all we're going to be doing is programming notes that are within the scale. It's really, really cool. And so, and then we're going down. The next note was a, yup. However, for this 808, I always like to cut out a little bit of the bottom end, around like anywhere from 25 to 50. I find that doing this, and even to kick, sometimes gives you a little bit more headroom when it comes to like the actual mastering. And then what I'm also going to do to give it a little bit more bite is to add a saturation. And so one of the ones that I've been using a lot lately is the black box, this one here. And there's a preset called, here we go, 808 fully wet. However, we don't want it at 100% because it sounds, maybe for certain genres, but not for this one. We're gonna turn on the mix. However, here I still want some sort of like synthy bass, and so let's go ahead and bring one in. Okay, so check it out. I found this bass sort of formant pad thing. I think this will work quite well. And what I'm gonna do for this, I'm just gonna take the pad that I had created before, drag it down, and again, we're just going to take the root notes here, which is this, this, and this. However, these can come down. Okay, so that's exactly what I wanted, but now, as I described before, we have a lot of like low-end frequencies clashing, and I have an idea. I don't know if it'll work, but let's find out. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, again, do a bit of a low cut. And then here's the trick. A lot of times, to make room for these sort of elements, I see people doing like side chaining. I don't like to side chain to like my basses from like kicks or really from anywhere else, because it does create sort of like that ducking effect, which maybe in this case could work because it is sort of like a dance record, but that's not what I want. There's a plugin that I've been using for a while now that I think does a much better job, and I don't know how to describe it. It kind of feels like a dynamic sort of EQ compressor thing, but it is called Track Spacer. And so the cool thing with this is that you can set it on a track that you want it to duck. And then you can set the trigger from another track. And so what I'm gonna do is that whenever that 808 hits, I want this track to come down. So from our 808 track, I'm gonna go over to our sentence audio. Actually, I believe it is through a sidechain here. And then we can just look for right there, synth bass, track spacer number 2. And so now, and now let's get a little bit crazy here, right? What if we then go up to our bass bus, we add another track spacer, so there, but this time we set the kick to be the trigger. When the 808 is hitting, it's going to sort of, I guess, duck the synth bass, but whenever the kick hits, both of those come down, so that way the kick gets priority. This needs something else, something in the melodic section. I don't know, something with a little bit more bite, more top end, because we have sort of filtered these two out, and then as I mentioned in the beginning, I do want to add some sort of like ARP for movement. And then from there, we sort of take away to create other sections. So let's see what we can find. And then without them, it just adds a little bit more like bite. And the very last thing I think we need here in the melodic section is some sort of like ARP, as I mentioned. So let me go ahead and bring that in, and I'll show you a really cool trick here in Studio One for creating ARPs really, really easy. Okay, so check this out. We're gonna create a MIDI event that spans the length of our section here. Open up your note editor. We can stay in this scale thing here. It doesn't really matter. What we wanna do is we want to click this button, the step record. And then from here, go ahead and set your value for whatever you want your notes to be. I'm thinking maybe 8th or 16th notes. Let's find out here. And then from here, all you have to do is simply play the notes sequentially. So, and you see how they sort of stack up one after the other? So let's swap this over to 16th notes, and then again. And then we just need that octave. So let's take all this, and then once we select them, press the D key, just to sort of, and then that second chord. So place your cursor, and then it was a B flat minor. And then again, that octave. Select all this, copy them again. And then again, that third note. Take all these, duplicate them again. And then last but not least, we had that G flat major, right? So all I'm doing is just playing the notes on the keyboard, and it stacks them up for me. And then we just sort of duplicate. And now check out our ARP. Okay, this sounds great, but we need to do a little bit of tweaking to these sounds. To that second set of keys, the ones that I added here, I think it'd be cool to add a little bit of a tremolator just to sort of move them a little bit more. So this is by Sound Toys, but this is too fast. And so maybe let's do a quarter note, bring the depth. Let's listen to it in the context of all the keys and synths. It just has to feel good. I need this to be a little bit rushed. So let's pull the field down. And now for this ARP, what I'm gonna do is let's go ahead and process it first and foremost. So let's add an EQ. And I do wanna cut off a little bit of that top end. You hear that like top end sizzle? I don't want that. That'll work. From there, we need a little bit of reverb. So I'm gonna take one of the ones from down here, boop, drag it up, and then just drop it into there. What I am gonna do here though, is I'm gonna change the decay time. I'm gonna actually change these for these down here as well. I love it. Let's add some of that Juno chorus. What if we add another black box here, just for a little bit more bite? And there is a preset here called Synth Smash. But it's kind of introducing those same frequencies that I cut earlier. I'll probably keep it just because there is a sort of dense arrangement already here. Maybe it'll help it poke through. Okay, I think we're honestly done. So to give you a bit of A and B, here is the original beat again. My God.
Flow with the music.
And then the finished product here. Hey. But anyway, thank you for hanging out with me today, friend. Hopefully you enjoyed the beat and hopefully you enjoyed the video. And if you did like the video, if you find it valuable, then do me a huge favor and hit that like button so you can tell the algorithm and the YouTube gods that this was a good video and that you want to see more, so it shares it with other people. And of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you stay up to date with all the things here on the channel. Lastly, if you're a producer who wants to make more meaningful strides this year with your production, then make sure to watch this video right over here.